Welcome to Shedding Mysticism, where we delve deep into the human mind to get rid of all thoughts of woo, negativity, and holding back mankind into the Stone Age with our minds. We learn, we move on, and we help society by shedding mysticism from our minds. You might even say it drives you crazy. Oh, crap, there I am. Okay. Hi, I'm your host, Randallmagley, and this is Shedding Mysticism. And my green screen, my computer, looks like it's having a hard time processing once again, so please bear with me. See if we can correct that a little bit more. Guess not. It is what it is, huh? Well, bumped it a little bit too far there. Okay. Now the topic of GMOs. This is a quick topic that I was just looking up on the internet. I was just looking for a topic. And I've been behind, and I apologize. This topic is one of the myths going out there. Actually, it's a debate full of myth about the GMO foods. Now, there are two sides of this, and I have two different links to videos you could go to check that out in the description there. But they're saying that, and you probably heard people too, it's making people sick and all this other stuff because of the genetics and everything. Well, it's not. We don't know if the genetics themselves are actually hurting humans because of the consumption of these foods. But genetic engineering of these foods are based on being insect and weed resistant or glyphosate resistant, which is Roundup. And apparently the usage now that you can get near these plants without killing them with Roundup, they use more and more and more to kill the weeds off. And since the beginning of like Roundup Ready stuff Monsanto created, switching the DNA over this stuff, it has pretty much doubled or tripled in usage just to get rid of these weeds. And then you get resistant weeds because, they got to build up. Either they got to build up the toxicity or, they're becoming immune to it, just like most anything else, on the genetic level. Nature will find a way, as Jeff Goldblum always used to say, or at least he did in Jurassic Park. But you get a lot of people, protesting foods now in, was it Korea, I think, or Asia, or some place in Asia where they got this new rice that has no food value for it whatever, and most of the kids or not most of the kids, but some of the kids are born blind. Hang on, we got a guest. Hey, Tobin, I'm going to keep talking about this topic for just a second. Okay, so we got this rice that's over in Asia. It's called the golden rice, and what they did is they genetically modified it with beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. And vitamin A, as everybody knows, is good for your eyes. That's why, mom and dad used to say, eat your carrots, it's good for your eyes. It's got vitamin A in it. And so the Asian, most of Asia, is their supplemental food is the rice, and they are deficient in vitamin A. So when they were experimenting with just the food plots, trying to make a study out of this rice. Protesters came up and said, it's a Frankenstein batch of rice, and we're not going to eat it. And then they went in there and trampled the whole damn study, the field and everything. So it put back progress years of helping, their own people with, getting the beta carotene that's already in the rice, because it is their staple food. And like, especially like China, where they grow most of it. And, there's very little nutritional value to that grain. And, and this is probably why they stay skinny, is because they're eating rice. It's not packed with a lot of vitamins. They don't have that big of a diversity. I mean, they do eat their veggies and stuff and little bits of meat here and there and everything. But, the staple is mixing it in with rice. And so is what they wind up with is more of the worthless food that's not doing much for them, and less of the food that actually has the nutrients in it. So they're deficient in certain vitamins and everything. And GMOs, somebody created this brand of rice, and just like any other things that we see, bigger and better crops, and better yields per acre and all that other stuff, and easier to pick, and blah 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 blah. So there's the good side of it. I think you're muted.
Oh, I was
on
just
your end.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of where they genetically modified and they made the rice kernels bigger on them. Like, it's cool.
That too. I get more yield per plant. Yeah, and all farmers are doing it all around the world, except for, in some areas, it's, I don't know, it's kind of taboo because of and it's usually the prejudice from people who actually have food are helping starve out those who don't by protesting, get rid of this food and everything. When the farmers and the companies, it was grown, specifically so they can get more yield out of it and have some go to these other like third world countries and stuff like that. And also, drought resistant, like grass seeds, wheat, corn, things like that. And actually, through Michigan State University, I know a young lady that was from southern China. She was doing a DNA study and trying to make drought-resistant turf by getting desert grasses and mixing them in with lawn, so she can get this, instead of having these big tufts of grass, that grew 3 foot tall and hard as a rock at the base and everything. She genetically modified them so she can get short turf grass out of it that didn't even need, a tenth of the water that turf grass usually would have, and cut down the water restrictions in cities and things like that, so they can use their water more efficiently. And I thought that was just absolutely brilliant of her to do that. And that was another way of genetically modifying something. And is what she'd do is she'd take a bacterium that grew naturally in one of these grasses or whatever that helped the decision of how this plant should grow, and then took the DNA and took the part of the DNA out of that bacterium and put it, why would it be resistant, to drought, and put it in the missing pieces that she took out of the other type of grass. But it took several generations of doing this before it finally became a shorter grass and everything. It was manipulated to do so, and it took several different types of manipulation in order to get it that way, because there was several attributes to it. Short, thicker, not gangly, and drought resistant, and tough roots or something like that. Something that would make it just like a nice golf course or something like that. So it was
like
pretty amazing.
breeding in a way.
Almost, yeah. Now there's other direct, with just basically bioelectrolysis, changing DNA. In what you ever see those little flat worms? The two little eyes that poke straight up. And they're really tiny. Well, you can cut them right in half, and then they'll grow back. One will grow the tail, and the other one will grow the head. But signature, the
I've missed
bioelectric
that one.
signature of yeah, it's really interesting. Well, is what it was. There's I saw it on Nova last night, and it was single cell conscious thinking and decision making, and they actually had tests of single cell organisms that they tested to see if it can problem solve. And they had a little bridge that the one thing had to cross in order to get to the prize, the food that it normally likes. So, but they coated it with salt, and then they did this thousands of times, and the results were the same every time. After the fifth or sixth day, the thing figured out how to get around all the salt particles and get to so it was problem solving. So it had through memory. So it was thinking and actually learning. And this is a single-celled organism. And it was spreading out like a fungus or something like that. I don't know what they had on there. So they tried this out with these worms, and they figured out that it was the electrical chemistry. It was the electrical impulse. They just changed the frequency a little bit, and then the worm grew two heads, stuff like that, one on each end. It was really freaky, but they didn't do anything else other than put a different electrical pulse in there in order to confuse the DNA, this bioelectrical pathway of the single cells thinking how to rebuild themselves. It just kind of it made them drunk pretty much, and they just didn't know which way to go, and they just made a whole new type of animal, one with two heads and stuff. And yeah,
That's cool.
it was really cool. Yeah. So when we're doing this stuff with these foods, like the corn and everything, there's always been a European corn, like a grub, and a few beetles and stuff here in the United States. There's always been stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, borers, especially in
outdoors,
the corn,
growing outdoors, bugs are one of your biggest enemies. You could have everything set up right, but if you do not protect, be ready for those things, you'll wake up one morning and then it's like eaten, devastated.
Yeah,
sucks.
Yep. Well, these different viewpoints on these the genetically modified organisms, so far as the food goes, Monsanto, owns about 90% of the food here in the United States, and half of it in the rest of the world too. But so they do have monopoly, on it, and the science is still out. Half of it you're getting from the corporation, and the other half of it you're getting from protesters or people who just randomly. And the scientists, they really can't keep up with it because it's a fairly new thing. It has to have a long-term study, and we've only started using pesticides and shit like that since the 50s or whatever, and it's going to take a little bit longer just to see the pros and cons with, if GMOs are swaying towards the good side, the scale, or the bad side of the scale. And so far, the volume of food and the cleaner food is okay. However, it takes more chemicals ruining the environment just to get them that way.
See, I know there is another way. There is another way to grow food, and we could be doing it indoors we could even be doing it to where it's vertical. Um,
Right.
I have built these things. I've only made, very simplistic ones just to see how it works. But um, if you can indoor grow, you can keep the bugs less out of it. The thing about the pesticides and stuff that really bothers me is because the idea that that is going back into the soil and then it's going back into the ocean. These chemicals are making it into places that it becomes harmful to the other creatures. That's one thing
Yes. Well, now that these plants are, like, well, corn, soybean, wheat, they are more nitrogen deficient. So, nitrogen or, uh, yeah, nitrogen. Um, so, they actually had to put more fertilizer with nitrogen on it. And a lot of that stuff has leaching effects and gets into the water system. And that helps lower the pH. Well, it's not a help. It's a hindrance. Lowers the pH in water and makes acid water, acid rain, whatever. And this is why all the mollusks and the seashells and all anything like that, the crustacea, are having a hard time building their shells and surviving because the pH balance has to be raised up to an alkalinic state in order for them to for the chemical that the shells are built out of to be built, in their environment. So the more acidic the water is the worse it is for all those little, and I'm talking the little microscope, little itty bitty things that are like the basis of the food chain. The gajillions and gajillions of them, in the water that everything starts from eating. And, those things are becoming obsolete now because of our poor food practices. So there's a balance here that we got to try to, deal with. It just kind of like the asbestos scare all over again, with now people are dying of lung cancer and shit like that because of, a miracle substance or whatever that everybody builds shit out of. Well, now we know that it's not good at all. So, we need to learn from nature a hell of a lot better than what we're doing right now. We're just getting pretty greedy, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna take some time. I think there are answers to a lot of these bigger problems that people talk about, like GMOs. Like I don't have a problem with eating genetically modified food. It's not, I mean, much of it is just, you know, just the way we culture it, there's not really
Mm-hmm.
a whole lot of, like we're adding a whole lot of chemicals and stuff to it. Although I say that, but the fertilizers and stuff, it can't, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
don't know where I'm going.
conundrum. Do we save ourselves? Do we keep using these bad practices and ruin the planet and save ourselves, or do we just ruin ourselves and have all kinds of strife and use other energy resources and everything to get the food? I mean, it's just humans exist, therefore fuck up the world. And that's the only thing that we can seem to do. We touch it and it just gets ruined. Everything. Um, but yeah, I agree. And there are gigantic places that grows food indoors, and they do really good. Unfortunately, for most people, where the bulk of the food comes from, you're talking hundreds of thousands of acres, and there's no way you're going to make buildings that damn big. You
Oh
know,
no.
I
Oh
hell
no.
even ranches. I went out to Wyoming, and there's this one guy's ranch. We drove by the fence at 80 miles an hour, and it was still his ranch an hour later. It
Oh
like took
yeah,
up half the freaking state of Wyoming. It's great big
it's
cattle
amazing.
ranches, stuff like that.
Like the amount, like if I just consider the amount of rice that I could eat throughout a year, the actual space of that rice that I ate through the year took up a whole shitload of area. Like grains like that,
Mm-hmm.
it the amount that they have to grow just to feed one person is actually I can't remember numbers, I can't put details to it, but it is pretty amazing. Like grains and stuff like that, it takes a lot
Mm-hmm.
just to feed one person, the area in which it
Yeah.
grows.
And now just think of the numbers, the space it takes something like a sheep or a cow or something like that to do that. And they eat 8 times as much as we do or more. And then, it might take us 6 to 9 months to eat that cow, and have beef every night for dinner. So it's only gonna take a half a year to eat the entire thing. Meanwhile, this thing has been being raised for 5 years, or a couple of years at least before it gets to maturity enough to butcher it. So, the numbers, for acre per acre or whatever, meat eating is just probably the worst thing that we can do, really. But our digestive systems have been adapted to it. Same thing with not eating raw meat and stuff like that, like we used to do, or our ancestors. We just don't have the gut bacterium and the strength to go out there and break open a bone and get the marrow, or just have a raw piece of bloody meat or whatever like that, and not have a belly ache, much less poison ourselves or get a parasite. It just doesn't happen. We can't do it anymore. So everything that we do, it has been modified to our liking. So, but there's a cost to that. There's less work, but there's more. Um, I want to say um, unwitting, handpicked evolution along in our own systems, getting used to these things. So the bacteria. I mean, we're witless when it comes to what we've done to ourselves over the past 10,000 years. And I used to talk about people going out and picking wild grains and stuff like that, even just coming out of the Stone Age. Yeah, we can't do that anymore. There's no way we can digest any of that stuff. No way.
Yeah. You were talking about corn earlier, and I remembered, like now all we see is yellow corn, and there used to be many varieties of corn, and now
Yep.
it's now we've tailored it to be this one kernel basically. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, we got sweet corn or yellow corn, and that's pretty much about it. And the yellow corn, a lot of it's grown for ethanol, even. But yeah, the older stuff, I don't think, if we was to eat the hard corn that the natives had here, the purple stuff and the different color stuff, I bet you it would probably block us up like freaking a pound of welfare cheese. We'd probably die from it. Yeah. So yeah, I think corn used to be digestible. I mean, it is a grass. It is a seed. So it probably was more digestible, and you didn't see all the kernels in your poop like you do nowadays, this past couple of generations. I'm not sure. Nobody wrote about stuff like that way back then.
right on.
But yeah, it's fascinating to find out, the causes of why we are so sedentary and weak nowadays. And it's not because of lack of wanting to go, make something of ourselves or anything. Like me, for instance, the autoimmune disease, I got Crohn's disease and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Well, I try to watch what I eat, and sometimes it just doesn't matter. And, I've had the open heart surgery and everything. So, but way the hell back when I got diagnosed with all this stuff, they told me I'd never work a day in my life. Well, ever again. I did. So, and I was willing to do it. So it's not like I'm a lazy person. I'm willing to go out there and make something of myself. It's just that, I've tried and I failed, and I wound up in the hospital every time. And a lot of it is because of the foods I'm eating. Unfortunately, I have several things going on: epilepsy, diabetes, heart disease, a little bit of liver disease, the Crohn's disease, just, the major things that I got going on. How in the world am I going to, all these different little diets, how am I going to eat the right thing and still have energy to go and health to go do something? It's just not going to happen. So, would it be, should I have lived 100 years ago to where, foods were more natural or something, and I could have compensated for that, or is it worse now, or would have been then, or would it have been, the opposite? I don't know. But we got this attitude nowadays that, we got too many people that are sick, and we're not going to take care of them to make them better to begin with. And then we're going to tell them to pull their, their up the bootstraps or whatever the hell they say. You're on your own pretty much. You can't do shit on your own when you're always sick and miserable.
Man, I heard
it's hard to leave the house.
I heard a number on India last night that they're at 1.9 billion people over there.
Oh, wow.
1.9 billion.
Oh, yeah. China's at like 7 or 2 or 3 billion. I'm not sure. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So what do you do to save the world's problems? Well, everything is politicized and capitalized. So that is the problem. That's the main problem. Do away with that stuff, and everybody can, the actual people can have solutions to solve problems. I mean, there's like free energy stuff and all kinds of things that has been around. Did you know that there was a static engine? It was like a bicycle wheel went around. The guy cranked it, and it created more electricity than it took to run it. So it was pretty much a static motor that this just created more, excess power. And you'll never guess when it was. It was in 1786 when George Washington was trotting his ass back home to the farm. That's how long we've had this kind of energy that's been suppressed. So a few people at the top, can make systems based on neediness for the rest of us. This is so, we got to figure out a way to actually deal with that instead of, being politically divided, because that stuff's child's play to me. It's just, I don't even want to hear politics because it's stupid. It just really is. What's more important is us killing ourselves and the rest of the planet. How are we going to solve that problem? Well, we got to change our thinking altogether.
That's what got me to the point to where I'm at right now is exactly what you're thinking about right now. And I was like, how can I change the world? And I was like, I got to this conclusion that I need to make changes and I need to do things to make it to where I can influence others. Like what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
uh, do here is get it to where one, I'm sustainable here, and I want to show that it can be do. I want to see if it can be done. I want to try to make uh, a system of living here that is basically self-sustainable through water collection and um, other ways of getting energy. Like right now, my main source is all
Right.
solar power, but there's other things too that I'm really
Hmm.
curious about getting into, like atmospheric generators. Like you can spend a lot of money and you can go buy one of those. They already make them, but I'm really curious at attempting to reverse engineer it and do it on my own
Right.
and play with those types of sciences. I am like energy creation. I would definitely. I have spent time. I have. I took uh, an old alternator and fucking gave it a little 9-volt battery and hooked it up to a bike, and I was cranking it to see how much power I could get out of how long it would take me to fill up a 12-volt battery, which is achievable, but those things, those
It's
are
hard to do.
my types of interest right there.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine. He's an engineer, and he made this little generator that's maybe the size of, oh, I don't know, a small amp, or a foot locker, or something. Like a chest. And he uses it he puts it in this little creek, and it's just got the wheel on it, just like the old sawmills and stuff like that, except for it's made out of PVC, and it's longer. It's not so much wide. The surface area is actually wider than it is tall. And he's got a series of bicycle gears and stuff on there, and it turns just this one little tinky tiny generator about this big around, and it it's lights up a festival, like a music festival that they have every year. I don't know if they do, plugging in, too much stuff, but all the lighting and everything, everybody in the entire campground, and it's huge. It's like 150 acres or something like that, and they got lights strung all over the damn place, and it lights them all up, just bright as
With the
hell.
new
So
lighting, the LED lighting, it really does not take very much energy to run all the lights and stuff. Like you can have just a
right,
regular car battery. Uh, in fact, I've done this back whenever I first started. I took one of my car batteries that was bad and I was gonna put in a new one. I took that one and I used that one to run a light. Like it can be a degraded battery and it'll still run these LEDs just fine.
yeah, they're super efficient. The problem is it's a different kind of light than what we're used to with light bulbs. It disperses it a lot more, and it doesn't. There's no concentrated beams going to a certain area. Even though light bulbs do, they go everywhere, but the LEDs, for some odd reason, it disperses the light. And you got a flashlight or something, you got a couple of LEDs in it. Sure, it's bright. You can see it from a couple of miles away, like the commercials say, but you can't see anything on the other side of your yard unless it's glowing or something. It just in anything dark, it doesn't shine, just like a regular flashlight would from the old days. Just and to me, that's a big problem. So you have to get one with a cone, and then that way it bounces around in a cone and then comes out, like the old flashlights did, make a beam. Um, So yeah,
Right on.
there's a lot of different ways, to do, just, I mean, hell, just I keep my yard lights off and stuff like that because I went and got a bunch of those cheap little solar deals, you put along the walkway, and I just got them around my house, and right up until about 3 or 4 in the morning, them things are still on, and they charge right up on a cloudy day even, and unless it's really dark out, then I'm not going to charge. But in general, they'll charge right up and then stay on most of the night. That way I can see
Yeah,
if raccoons are getting into stuff or whatever.
mine do pretty good. I mean, it takes like 2 or 3 days of like really bad weather, and then maybe they're not coming on. But especially when they're brand new, they
Hmm.
do pretty good job, even though like very
Oh yeah,
on the cheap end. Yeah.
yeah. It depends on the output of them too. Some of them are really bright, like them ones that they show you on TV to put above your garage. Well, I got one like that from the dollar store, and it's way weaker. It still lights up enough, when a car goes by or an animal walks by, it lights up enough to where I can see out there. But it's not, wasting a whole bunch of energy like the garage type was that they showed on TV. You get the cheaper version, and you're still saving money. I mean, either way, just saving all
Yeah,
the way
people
around.
used
You
to
just got
put
to adjust for what it is.
people used to use the high pressure sodium lights and stuff like that. Those take up so much power. Like, I've blown breakers trying to hook them
Oh
up,
yeah,
like, before I really knew anything about electrical work and stuff. But, yeah, those are powerful. Oh man, they suck so much power.
what I do in case the power goes out, and especially in the wintertime. Um, I have these candles, like just the regular long stick candles that you
Hmm.
can get. Well, get some. I got these little things of Crisco, and any of that vegetable shortening like that. It doesn't matter if it's off brand or not. So you can get the cheap ones too, and all of them. If you notice, there's a little flame above the eye there, and there's a little flame above, and all of these labels on the vegetable shortening cans. The reason why that is because those companies used to be candle makers, and they used to make them out of vegetable shortening. So you can take these candles and shove them down in there, and if you get one in the middle of one of these cans, then I've had mine last. I've experimented. I've had one last for 2 weeks, and it's only 3/4 of the way down. I mean, solid, running, just flame, burning down for 2 weeks
You know
because it was
that
burning off that stuff.
that's amazing, and that is really freaking cool. You know, I live in Texas, right? And I went through that freeze that happened,
Yep.
and I did have we do have a heater here, um, but I was really curious about um like not using it and having to pay for gas to heat my place. We experimented with candles, and we would get like 3 or 4 of them going, and it would warm. It kept. We ended up using candles through the entire time. I never had to buy gas. I never had to turn on my heater. I was really amazed at how much the heat. It like I could walk inside and be like, "Oh, it's warm," and start taking off my clothes. Although my place is pretty
Yeah.
freaking small, but um yeah, it impressed me how much heat it really does put out, and that's awesome that you can stick them in a Crisco and make it burn longer.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. They
is
used to do that back in World War II. As a blackout emergency candle is what they called them, or something like that. And what I've been doing is, them little jars about that big around, and they're tall and skinny to get your olives
Oh yeah.
and peppers and stuff like that in. I take those and stuff them right full of that Crisco or whatever I got, and stick one of those candles right down the middle, and then just clip it right off, and then get the next one and do this, with the other half of the candle. And so, A, I love olives. B, anything like that is going to make a real good, long-lasting candle. So it's just, to do these little homemade projects and to prepare yourself for a big emergency like that. I mean, you can put the lids right back on and close them off. They're not going to go bad, nothing. They're going to be the same.
Right.
10 years from now, when the power does go out again, you do get another big freeze. They'll be right there, in your emergency kit in the basement or whatever you got. So, I mean, it behooves everybody to start thinking like they used to think back in the Great Depression, and, just being inventive and figure out, why this is or that. You don't need to go to the store and just instantly spend hundreds of dollars. Oh my God, the sky is falling, because that's what they want. And by they, I mean, people who are raising the prices and doing bullshit. If you become somewhat of a prepper, I mean, don't go crazy with it, but I got everything to survive.
To me, one of my philosophies is I prepare for the worst, and I wish for the best. I'm because shit's gonna happen. It's inevitable. I don't know what shit's gonna hit the fan, but I can, there's some predictions I can make, like keeping first aid
right
gear and things like that, keeping water, things of that nature. I know it kind of, I was like, man, the prepper people have kind of got a bad name for them, but in a way, like, I'm not worried about the world ending, but shit happens. Stuff happens.
Yeah, in local areas a lot. And you don't want your neighbors knowing what you got stashed away either, because that's the first house everybody is going to raid. Hey, that guy's got food and batteries and water, and so yeah, sorry about the noises. I got big tractors and four-wheelers and big trucks and everything going to the farms around here, right by my house. So
I actually can't hear any road noise.
Oh, okay, good. But so as far as feeding people, and there's no reason right now in the United States. There's no reason right now why anybody should ever go hungry. I mean, we are in a land of total abundance right now. There shouldn't be homeless people, especially by the millions, like out west in LA. I mean, they're building houses all over the place, and nobody's going to live in them. Half the houses are abandoned anyways. So, and these things can open up jobs for a while too. I mean, there are things to do. So you got food, you got shelter, you got employment, and you might have some better security or whatever. Most people don't want to be homeless, and they're in that predicament because, the geopolitical environment basically shoved them out on the street. So, but it's all over this country. There shouldn't be anybody for any need or want. I mean, maybe want, but for your basic needs, nobody should be going without. Healthcare. We have it all. There's absolutely no excuse for the abundance that we have going to waste just so other people can't have it. And the other people are called poor people. It's people like me. So it's that othering thing again. But this stuff has got to be cleaned up. We don't need to spend trillions of dollars on too many new infrastructures. We can use some of it that we have already. I mean, everything's just going to waste. There's great big mansions and everything that people just left places, 2 or 3 families can live in. It's just disgusting, the excess of waste from capitalism that we have in this country. And I'm not saying capitalism is all bad, but our type of capitalism, the trickle down stuff, is bad. It has to work from the bottom up, not the top down.
See, like I'm like with the politics stuff, I'm still learning stuff, and I do have some stronger opinions about certain subjects about government, but that's still something I'm building my knowledge on before I can become like really expressive about being like, oh, I'm this type of,
Yeah, me too.
But like capitalism and like socialism and thing like that, the point where I'm at with my knowledge at is like, I kind of think all these ideas need to be used. It's like conservatism. Like we hear that and we automatically go, well, I think what comes into my head is the right, the Christian nationalism, Republicans.
Yep.
But the idea of conservatism, whenever it comes down to it, there are times I'm very conservative. Like I see my phone battery and I'm like, oh, I only have like 30% and I'm away from my house. I need to conserve my power. Like I think in the political sphere, like there's a lot of times where people are like, I hear this too, where they're like libertarians, those freaking libertarians. I like the idea of liberty, and I don't really understand why all these
Yep.
ideas are kind of, I don't know, hated on in a way.
Yeah, well, it's the narrative that's getting spread. They teach us who to hate and who to be afraid of. That's what this last presidency was all about. With all the news stations, that were just making stuff up, but yet somebody else was fake news. This thing that over here, the story we're going off of, to hate these people over here just because, who knows? They might come from the ghetto or whatever. Oh my God, they're coming to get us, kind of fear mongering crap. And no, they're not. There's no evidence of that. It's just some entertainment channel that poses as the news, making those things up because politicians said, okay, here's what we're running with. Now that everybody's afraid, I'm going to be your savior kind of thing. And then they get in power. And then, of course, they're the snake oil salesman. So, and this has been going on. It's been a con job, with the religious nationalism or any kind of politics for that matter, since society started coming together and farming and trying to regulate themselves and figure it out. These are just problems that we need to think about a little harder instead of just going one side or the other. There are other options, a lot of other options, and nobody's looking at them because they're told by the two that are in power that there isn't anything else. It's either me or him. That's it. And then everybody out in the public, yeah, let's go get them or whatever. And this is what we vote for. Well, they're telling you who to vote for. What we need to do is tell them who we're going to vote for. Somebody that's going to be a little bit different than just feeding rich people out of their own party.
That was said very well. I am in agreement with that. That we should be telling them who. Yes. Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty complicated world, and these conversations need to be opened up. But it's not conversations down on our little peon level. These ideas need to be, go to our representatives, and a lot of people. That's what petitions are for, and everything else. We got to have boots on the ground, and and have little town hall meetings or whatever. And it's not so much about convincing people of something, it's telling them what they already know, except for who their enemy really is. It's the ruling elite against the rest of us. That's who the enemy is. There's no savior coming to save anybody, whether religiously, politically, or any kind of external authority figure that you have mystified in your head that's coming to save you. I mean, that's what indoctrination on all kinds do to you. You're told that you need to be submissive, and an authority figure will take care of you. Well, every time they screw you over. Politicians, the churches, I mean, you name it. Anybody who's going to think that they have the right to have power over you does not have your best interest at heart. Period. It is morally wrong for one person to rule over another person, in my eyes.
No slaves, no masters. No masters, no slaves.
Yep. Yep, yeah. We all need to be, equal and be paid upon our merits of the values that we, produce and create. Everything else is bullshit.
Yep.
Okay. On that note, do you have anything you want to shill before I close it down? It's almost time.
I will be going and hanging out with B tomorrow. I'm gonna go hang out on her channel. I haven't been over there for a little while.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just gonna be hanging out.
Yeah, I'll probably be doing the same thing too, except for Saturday I got Live with a Harmonica Man, and I'm trying to get guests to come on and talk about music and stuff like that. I might have a contest going on a friend's channel of mine, but that'll be a separate, Anyways, yeah. But that's about all I got going on. It's just my regular 2 shows, and videos will be coming out. So, and I know you're in a lot of different people's streams and talking about important issues and things like that too. So if anybody's watching this now or in the future, just keep in mind Tobin is getting into this and he's serious, about this stuff and basically an advocate for your human rights. Being a humanist type person, and anybody can be humanist. You can be a Christian or Muslim or Hindi. Humanist, it's about taking care of other human beings' needs. That's all it means. So all the arguments and everything else, whether or not you believe this or that, is irrelevant unless it directly causes harm to other human beings, whether immediately or down the road. So Tobin is a good part of that, and advocate for human beings, and so am I. And that's what this channel is about, getting rid of bullshit, coming to the truth and working with it because it's tangible and we can use it to make things better. Okay, is that all you had then?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to end the stream now. And everybody, be kind to each other. Think for yourself. All that good stuff. Do research. And don't do any confirmation bias type research just so you can argue. Try to prove yourself wrong. And then the last thing standing has to be the answer. And with that, I bid you adieu until next week. Have a good one, everybody.